The example I showed where I went through and searched, that saved me easily hours.
All right, so it looks like it provided you with a whole report. This is more than I expected. Wow.
We're able to leverage something that's in SharePoint. I wanted to list out any promises I made to the client so I can make sure that we fulfill our commitment.
Yeah, it's impressive that it picked up on the font type. Yeah, Poppins is our font, and I always check to make sure that that's what we're using.
So in the last couple of months, ChatGPT and Copilot have released new ways where you can essentially query and access your data. So I'm going to show that. I'm going to show a couple of examples. We'll start with ChatGPT. In ChatGPT, they're called connectors. And if we take a look, they have quite a few already, and I imagine this will get longer. But you can now connect ChatGPT to Box and Dropbox and Google and Gmail and HubSpot, Teams. I already have it connected to my calendar and email and SharePoint. So you can connect these and now ask it questions and it'll access those. I'll show you what that looks like. So in ChatGPT, the way you use this is you go to Tools, Search Connectors. You want to make sure that whatever you want to search is toggled on. And then I'm going to ask it to summarize a Tycomics brand guide. So then it came back and it provided me a summary of our brand guide, which was pretty neat. The next thing I wanted to do was I took a old PowerPoint that needs to be updated. Go ahead and paste that in there. Then I'm going to ask it to look at this slide and does it conform with our branding guidelines? Let's see what it has to say. So it came back and said in certain areas, it did conform, color usage, tone, and icon, but then it listed out suggestions. So we have to change the type, the height and line spacing. And then overall, it's 90% compliant. And then it gave a couple suggestions on how to improve it.
Yeah, it's impressive that it picked up on the font type. Yeah, Poppins is our font, and I always check to make sure that that's what we're using. And it did pick up on that, which is really helpful.
All right, in this next example, I'm going to show Copilot. They just released, I think a couple months ago, a agent called Researcher. So this is Microsoft's Researcher. It's available through Copilot, the paid $30 license. If you're paying for Copilot, you now have Researcher. And it's something that you can use 25 times a month. If you use it more than 25 times, you get locked out. Microsoft does not offer any way that I see of being able to pay extra to use it more. But Researcher will go and do extensive searches through, for example, email. And that's what I want to show here. So here's a prompt that I wrote. This is real life. I needed this a couple weeks ago, where we had a client that we essentially were negotiating on a project for about 6 months. And now I got a kickoff call because they've decided to move forward on it. And I really don't want to go through and read, the 50, 60 emails that I have written with them on this. And I want ChatGPT to go through all my emails with this client, summarize it. But more importantly, I wanted to list out any promises I made to the client so I can make sure that we fulfill our commitment. So now research is going in and it's accessing and reading through all my emails and it's going to provide us a summary.
So it looks like it's asking a clarifying question.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell it that I don't want a detailed summary of each email, just key points. And around the Concur project. So good question. So hopefully that gives us a little more detailed information, and it's going to now go through my mailbox and hopefully pull out the information. Now, what I've found that based on what you're asking to do, it could take seconds or minutes. So far, it's been working about 3 minutes on my request. Now, normally what I would do is I would just make this prompt and then move on with other work and then eventually come back here and see, okay, what did it come up with? So I'm just going to be staring at it for 4 minutes.
All right, so it looks like it provided you with a whole report. This is more than I expected. Wow.
Yeah, and references. Okay, it's done. It took about 5 minutes to produce this report, and we are going to gray out, specific details about the client because this is a real use case. But it's provided me a summary, which is pretty neat. And then what we have here is a timeline of all the emails that it accessed, background, and one thing I'm noticing, Sebastian, which I like about the Microsoft solutions is that it references the actual document. So when, it says here that we provided a project fee and quoted $39,000. And if I click on this, it'll actually open up that email.
That's it.
And I can confirm it.
That's a great way to
So-
validate that it's correct with what it's saying, right? Can you talk a little bit about the reliability? Is it giving you consistently good answers? Does it hiccup once in a while?
Well, it wasn't perfect. The first time I used it on one of these prompts, it did a great job. And the next time I used it, it was definitely lacking. So consistency is I would say, an issue, but it's good enough for me now that I'm willing to give it a second try if I have to, right? The example I showed where I went through and searched dozens of emails I had with a client and helped me remember all the promises I had made and the conversations that we had, that saved me easily hours. So pretty helpful. I'm using it, and I'm looking forward to every day as it gets better and better.